Howdy folks and welcome. I hope this finds you well. Today, I'll be asking 10 questions about Stalker 2 Hard Chernobyl that we desperately want answered. If you've played any of the previous trilogy, you know that each answer you get leads to about 5 more questions. Don't sweat it though, it happens when the Soviets create secret underground laboratories to research brainwashing.
Empty your mind and submit to my will.
Now, I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't going to be hurt if these questions were not answered in Stalker 2, since we've waited about 15 years. But I guess that's sort of the mystique and beauty of the zone. If a question that you had was not on this list, write it down below. I'd love to start that conversation with you. And if you haven't played the original trilogy or don't really know about the lore, check out some of my videos. I go through it. Link down below. And we do have some loaded questions, so let's get into it. First question is a general one. What the heck has happened to the zone? The last time we were there, we were playing as the Major. During our escapades in the north of the zone, we meet a lot of factions and people trying to discover what had happened to the military helicopters and their crews.
Information on the onboard computer. Okay. So Stingray 3 had engine failure in both engines. What else is there? A map with what look like possible evacuation locations. Positions B2, B28, and B205. Interesting.
The Major gets involved with lots of the overarching plots from the first 2 games. For example, the Major does discover some of the X-Labs that have been hidden away. But we don't really know what's happened to the zone after the departure of the Major. Has the zone expanded? Are the emissions stronger, weaker? What's even causing the emissions now? And what's happened to the Monolith forces that don't hear the voice? It is a general question, but I think it works to start us off, and I am genuinely curious to see what is in store for us when we enter the zone again.
I've heard the rumors, but never firsthand. And I've got a funny feeling there's more trouble to come.
All I know is, and I've repeated it in most of my videos, is that the zone is not static, and that lends itself to the dynamics of the game and the feeling that this is like a lived-in world. We know through Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat that anomalies can shift and move around. Plus, with the emissions that we deal with in Call of Pripyat, it will be interesting to see what rifts have been created after our departure. Side note, I believe the main narrative, or what gets us started for Stalker 2 Hard Chernobyl, is the fact that anomalies are being spotted outside the zone. I think I'm remembering this right from the clip.
So you've seen an anomaly outside the zone.
That's why I'm here.
I've heard the rumors.
This definitely tells the acute player that something has not been fixed and that the noosphere is still ripped apart, or something's causing the noosphere to open even more. And that goes into our next question. What happened to sea consciousness?
I see you have many questions for me. Well, ask them, and then we can decide what to do with you.
After the events of the true ending in SOC, where Straylock gets the decoder and takes out the entity known as sea consciousness, we don't really have confirmation that he does kill them. Yeah, he shoots them with the AK-47 or the 74U, but we don't know if sea consciousness is actually dead or their minds, conglomerate minds, are gone. When thinking of this question, I got excited because of a interaction you can have with Duty's leader in Clear Sky. Once you make your way to Agroprom, he informs you, or you can ask him about what's been happening with the mutants, and he will tell you they found notes that not only were the Soviet scientists trying to control people, they were trying to control animals too. And with the mutants coordinating attacks against Duty, the Duty leader thinks there is someone calling the shots.
Secret experiments for controlling consciousness carried out in Soviet times. Can you believe that? Those guys made a lot of headway in their research. They even managed to instill simple commands into the minds of animals. That's what led us to suspect that someone or something can control mutants.
Remember, Clear Sky is a prequel to Shadow of Chernobyl. After Shadow of Chernobyl's events, in Call of Pripyat, we probably shouldn't be having these mutant coordinated attacks, but there is evidence of said attacks, especially the snorks at the ending when you're trying to evacuate. Monolith forces aren't teleporting around, and you're not hearing that oddly calming, deep Ukrainian voice.
Пришло время. Я вижу твое желание.
You would think that Sea Conscious is gone, but there are little things that make me feel like Straylock didn't finish the job. And speaking of Straylock, these transitions are top-notch, right? Our third question is, what's happened to the main characters of the game? Each Stalker game, you, the player, get to play 3 different characters. In Shadow of Chernobyl, you play Straylock. In Clear Sky, you play Scar. And in Call of Pripyat, you play the Major. And I cannot pronounce his name without saying it 15 times. So it's just the Major, or Alexander. That I can pronounce. I find it a very intriguing way to tell a story and to set a franchise with 3 different viewpoints. So at the end of Call of Pripyat, you get a lot of exposition. Now, it says certain things that are canon. This was also made 15 years ago, and I don't think GSC thought they would have the opportunity to continue with the story. So let's take all of this with a grain of salt. So the Major uncovers X labs that we previously knew about, but the outside world kind of didn't. And we get the documentation for said X labs. In the end of Call of Pripyat, it seems like the military does take over the forms and might not be so willing to, I don't know, research it, even if they say, yeah, we're going to research it. Militaries, shady militaries, what do you know?
The information gathered on X-designated laboratories was removed from military archives and filed as top secret. All personnel working in the zone were ordered to prevent the disclosure of information about the laboratories at any cost.
I hope there is side missions that you can go try to find the other labs. I mean, we've only seen like 5, right? 4 or 5. Another big shock about the main characters is Scar, or the fact that we see him in one of the trailers for Stalker 2. I mean, if you had played Clear Sky, seeing Scar alive probably brings more questions than we have right now.
What's going on? And me, Scar.
The fact that Scar has survived the mission from the end of Clear Sky is very interesting. First, what has he done for the last like 3 or 4 years inside the zone? I can only assume that he's been a part of the Monolith, and now he is, he's devoid of the voice, so he can actually be a person. But if he's alive, is Lebedev alive? That would be kind of cool.
My head's about to explode!
And has Scar actively worked against the players when he was part of Monolith? Or was he even part of Monolith at all? Also, what's happened to Straylock? Is he just researching stuff with the Ukrainian government? And the Major? I mean, I would have so many questions if I just was plopped down in the north of the zone and then experienced what the Major did. Rereading question 4, I think I have a better way of putting it. My original question was, will the Wish Granter be back? And we'll get into that. But my adapted question is, what is drawing people back to the zone now? Or for Stalker 2?
I am blind, but it is you who cannot see.
At the true ending of SOC, you realize that the Wish Granter is just an illusion created by Sea Consciousness to get people or persuade people to go into the middle of the zone or center of the zone just to get brainwashed and become a footman or a soldier in the Monolith army. This was perpetrated by Sea Consciousness and their minions to spread rumors about the Wish Granter to unsuspecting or suspecting people that just wished for a wish. I mean, if you were in the zone, you'd probably believe in the Wish Granter too after seeing like dogs spun up in the air and blown to bits. As I was writing this question, I got kind of giggly thinking, Well, we know more than probably lots of the Stalkers in Stalker 2, right? There's probably a lot of new people that have come into the zone and thinking about why that is. I'm thinking that the Wish Granter or some sort of ploy is back to get people into the zone, since, like, if it's just a death trap and there's artifacts, yeah, but the ecologists are there in the military, what's the point for a loner, right? That's what made SOC interesting, is that there was a reason why people were like trying to get past the military, not only for the artifacts, but if you could get your one true wish, you would do a lot of things. But if there is the Wish Granter, I'm interested to see who rebuilt it, since Straylock destroys the projection in SOC. I'll also be interested to see what type of Monolith structures are out there. I mean, in Call of Pripyat, you can see Monolith soldiers creating their radio towers, trying to get closer to the voice, and I'm interested to see what other Monolith structures, if at all, or any, are built around the zone when we get back to it. And that leads us into our fifth question. What happened to Monolith if sea consciousness is kaput?
It reminded me that we used to be puppets.
I took just one awkward step, and my whole world plunged into darkness.
That was the day the sea fields were turned off. Suddenly, the voice of Monolith was gone. I felt as if I was awakening from a years-long coma.
With sea consciousness gone, Monolith don't really have an ideology. I mean, they were just there to protect the center of the zone, and it's secret, like 7 scientists all merged together into one brain or one entity. We've met Monolith soldiers that do not have the voice and are kind of normal. I mean, think about Call of Pripyat. You can even get them to join a certain faction. There is going to be contention around the Monolith soldiers that don't hear the voice. Maybe some are faking. I mean, they've been agents that have convinced people of the Wish Granter, so I'm sure that they have silver-tongued people within their ranks. It also doesn't help that in Call of Pripyat, you face Monolith soldiers, well-armed and skilled Monolith soldiers that are coordinated, whether that's within the underground or when you're trying to evacuate with all the military personnel. There is a contingent of Monolith still left, and I really wonder who is giving them orders or how they're getting orders, or, you know, I would like to know more. Anyways, our sixth question today is, what about New Mutants and Anomalies? Now, I've done my fair bit of research for this trilogy and game series. I've loved almost every second of it, yet there was one part that really got me interested, and it was the cut content. Stalker, the old trilogy, has a lot of cut mutants that, I mean, you would think, oh, it's just probably something that jumps around just like a Snork or like a, big beefy guy like a pseudo giant. No, there's like a race of like psychic small creatures that have like a leader burrower, but also they're in internal war with like the Psy Dogs. I don't know, but I want this. In all seriousness, I'm very excited to see the old mutants with probably some new tricks, or have some new mutants that, we release from some random X lab. I also don't know how long it has been since getting back into the zone, so there's always the possibility of new mutants and the Noosphere just being crazy. I really hope they explore an anomaly that I found really interesting in Clear Sky, that being the time warp or the Mobius strip, eternal time. In Clear Sky, a group of mercenaries are trapped within a time bubble, and you have to get coordinates for them to leave this sphere of influence, of time influence. Now, I think it would be awesome if we could, I don't know, enter an anomaly that shows us the past, or has taken a portion of time and reverted it back to the past.
Received the coordinates and we're going to try to get out of the bubble. Okay, left here. 60 feet this way. Oh dang, we're free! You hear me? We made it out of the anomaly. We're headed for Limansk.
Okay, question number 7. And again, if you don't hear your question in this video, please write it down below, and I'm very certain that I or someone else will definitely answer it. So, question number 7 is, where will we be exploring? Now, this might seem a little controversial, but I kind of want to explore the places we've already been. That is not to say I don't want anything new. Of course I want to see new places within the zone, but I think it got a lot of flack, at least reading through the reviews of the old trilogy, that the games came out within a 3-year span, and the developers got called a little lazy. In retrospect, it's one of the best things the games could have done, because you get to see the changing dynamics within the zone for yourself. And these create narratives that you don't really think about in other games, or I guess in other franchises that often. For example, when in Clear Sky, you need a whole entire contingent of loners in the farmstead. Hop over to SOC, which is ahead in time, and there's nobody there except for a bunch of fleshes. But for as many new places that I would love to see, and I don't even know what they would be, I also want to go back to certain places like the hospital, like the CNPP. Hell, give me garbage. I want to go through those garbage piles and find crazy loot. Or has the garbage been even more set upon by garbage? I also, and I know I mentioned the X Labs before, I also would love to find the X Labs around or scattered around the zone as like a side mission or something, ones that we haven't been to. The best comparison to what I'm envisioning now in my head is sort of like the vaults from Fallout 3 that had such good lore and backstory to them that you could explore. I've always felt like the X Labs are sort of like the vaults, but you know, they have their own differences. I also wonder what the factions have done throughout all this time, and whether, I don't know, they have new bases. I've seen some pictures of Rostock not looking like a duty stronghold anymore, which is very odd. We'll see what happens. And that goes into our next question, number 8. What's happened to the factions? At the end of Call of Pripyat, the game makes it seem like freedom is on the rise, duty is about to go down the toilet, and loners plus bandits seem to be picking up the scraps. Plus, with all the anomalies moving around, it could be interesting. From what I've been reading and watching, it seems like there is a very big focus on player choice and that aspect of moving the story through your choices. Now, it might be column A or column B, but at least there is a choice, and it seems like there will be unforeseen consequences.
Sick reference though, bro.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Dude, your references are out of control. Everyone knows that.
No smooth transition for this next question. How powerful are artifacts going to be, and what kind of artifacts are we going to be using? One of the reasons why I loved SOC is that artifacts were just ubiquitous. You would pick them up, but the problem was that they would give you negative effects as well as positive. In a day and age of just buffs and oh, you can get this item to fly, or you can get this item to I don't know, bulldoze your way through 15 different people. I don't know, whatever it is, game developers have intentionally or unintentionally raised the power level. I hope in Stalker 2 that there's a little bit more, I don't know, gravitas around the artifacts. It's not just going to be like, oh, I got the best artifact in the game and I can sprint like 25 miles and take every single bullet. I really hope they strike the balance like they did in the previous games, where there is the positive effect, but there also are negative ones. And there's so many positive or negative effects that you really can mix and match or choose the way you play your character. That's what I'm hoping for. I also hope that the lore in the game, and maybe the reason why we're coming into the zone now, is because of powerful artifacts, that they don't get too wild with it, okay? That's what mods are for. And wow, we're at our last question, question number 10. If you enjoyed the video, check out my channel. There's something there for everyone. I make sure of it. And our last question is, how will Heart of Chernobyl end? What I mean by this question is, will Heart of Chernobyl be a standalone title, or are they looking to create another trilogy? I also have a lot of questions about the column A, column B choices within the game, since it will mean there's a difference between a canon ending and a non-canon ending. If GSC gets this right, and everything that I'm hearing from Gamescons to individual reporters to what I'm seeing on YouTube, everything is pointing to something extraordinary. And I really feel like all the hype and the push and the setbacks would not just be for one title. I really hope that this ending of Stalker 2 creates sort of like what Shadow of Chernobyl did. More questions than answers. And how do we fill those questions, or how do we answer those questions? By playing the next game. It would be something completely different if GSC was just milking this and they had a trilogy, a second trilogy that didn't mean anything. I am tentatively hopeful that this is the start of something really big, that we will get the answers we want from the previous games, and we will get more questions than those answers can provide. There is something special about this game series, and I am very, very excited to see what comes next. And as always, see you next time.